Everybody, welcome to another chat with me, William Green, and Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis. Stephen, it's been we're doing pretty good. We got 3 months in a row at this point.
Yeah. And it's the day after Thanksgiving. So I don't know about you, but I'm full and I'm ready to chat.
Yeah, sit back and chat.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's like for me, we're about a month into my little dry season that I do in my tent, and a lot of plants like the catasetums are dropping leaves and putting out spikes. And I noticed on your videos you've got that humongous walkeriana. And is it all one plant in that pot?
Yeah. It's probably about this big, which I don't know if you can really tell by the camera, but it's probably in a 12-inch pot, I would imagine.
Covered. Do you think that was the key to get it was just size, or you think it was because I know you said you're putting a board in front of it to keep the light off.
It was the board, because I have some in a 2-inch pot that are now blooming, or spiking in there. So the first bloom just opened today and just really started to color up and starting to look real nice. So
good.
Once that second bud opens and then colors up in probably a day or two, probably on Sunday, I'll film a video about it. But it finally bloomed, so I'm pretty happy about that. But yeah, it was definitely the board and not the size of the plant. So if you're at home growing walkeriana, don't think that your walkeriana needs to be in a pot this big before it blooms. Like I said, a 2-inch pot with mature size bulbs has spikes. So I'll do that comparison.
That's interesting because my grow tent is in front of a window, and the window faces a stairway in the opposite building, and there's lights on all night in that stairway. And I'm wondering if it's too late now to go ahead and start closing the blinds at night, or if there's like a window that if you don't make that with appropriate darkness, the plant will just throw up its hands and say, see you next year.
It's there's only one way to find out, right?
Why don't you know my?
Yeah. And I've got a larger plant right now in that same area that's not blooming, and it's in a pot that's this big, and it should be blooming, and I don't know why it's not. So they're kind of temperamental that way. But yeah, I would start just closing the blinds tonight and see if you can get a spike going. I mean, I know that I have a couple that bloom every spring, probably because they're hybrids. Maybe you can get a spring blooming, and then growing indoors it just totally changes the seasonality of things. It's not nearly as critical to have seasonal cues the same way that you have outside when you're growing inside. A lot of indoor growers will have their maximas bloom twice a year, their persevalianas, their walkerianas, nobiliores, all that good stuff. So
do you think temperature has something to do with it as well?
Not as much. I mean, it's one of a suite of factors that I think makes walkeriana bloom. When you think about them in the wild, they can take temperatures down to freezing. So they can take a light frost just fine. So they are going to be subjected to colder temperatures in the wild, but the indoor growers bloom them just fine.
Sure.
Harry Akagi in Hawaii, he says, when I lived in Oahu, if it got down to 55 degrees at night, that was like the coldest day of the year. So it's not critical. I think it's more the light changing, which is more important.
Okay. Well, I'll start doing that. I had someone last year say, if you need that temperature change and that darkness, just go outside and put it in the trunk of your car every night. And I was like, well, I did that with my nobile dendrobium last year, and it worked fantastically. I got great blooms on it, but I was just like, well, maybe I could do that as well. But I was like, maybe closing the blinds is a lot easier. So we'll see.
I'd be curious to see. You don't still have that nobile or nobile?
No, I got rid of it. I sold it this summer, actually.
I was going to say, I wonder if you could just put it like on the windowsill right next to the window, and that would, you'd be surprised
Just
how
to
cold.
drop the temperature. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like a little succulent.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
So, Stephen, you were telling me about Cattleya dowiana. You got some larger seedlings. I've got some seedlings as well. This species is, I've got very little experience with it except for just having the seedlings for the past year, but I've heard just nightmare stories about how difficult it is to grow. And yet, how many Cattleya hybrids owe their shape and fragrance to this species? It's like the one that everybody wants but nobody can grow.
Yeah, I think that's about right. So someone probably 100 years ago was able to grow it, and then they've just distributed pollen, and then that was just sort of the base of a huge proportion of the current hybrids. But yeah, it is tricky. I don't know that it's necessarily. It's kind of like walkeriana or nobilior. They're given this reputation for being really tricky. But if you have the right conditions, and they're not so bad. I have a larger walkeriana, dowiana here from Sunset Valley, and it has all the characteristics. Is that fuzzy or does that look good?
No, it says dowiana aurea. So this is
Yeah.
aurea means yellow, right? This is like the yellow variety of it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the Claire is the parent's name by Self, and this is the nicer of the three that I have in terms of the health of the plant. You can see that this one was approaching sunburn status. I think it didn't quite get enough sun to give those characteristic brown spots that were all growers get at some point. Especially with these ones. So whereas, like purpurata, those leaves will go straight up. They seem to be less prone to sunburn than dowiana and some of its relatives. I think Rex is the same way, where the leaves lie flat, and then they're just exposed to that sun at just full, full intensity, and it tends to burn a little more often.
Yeah.
So I mean, this one did great this summer outside. It got a little shrivelly even with the daily watering that I give it. So I added some fine grade orchiata on top to sort of fill in those holes and block that evaporation a little bit.
Hold some moisture in there.
Yeah, and I've moved this one in my grow tent, which I will do a video on probably in next week or two. And I really want to control the conditions a little bit more for this one, keep that humidity a little higher, and really prevent those cold snaps that it saw last year. Because as you know, the rumor is that dowiana dies in the cold. These two plants and the other one that I have saw near freezing temperatures last year several times, and they're fine, but the roots were dry. So I think
that was going to be my question. How wet were they?
Most of the time they were dry. They're also seedlings, which seem to be a little less prone to rot.
Yeah, more forgiving.
For some reason, adults get finicky and want to die. I don't know.
It just seems like those growth cycles are so set in the adult plants that there's just no room for error. It's like summer is grow, winter is rest, and I'm not equipped to handle. I would be really interested in like just the biology of the plant on like what changes at different times of year so that it just can't handle water anymore. Like my Rexes, if I water in the winter too much, sometimes if the temperature's too cold, I just get black blotches on the leaves, and it's like, what is happening here? I do find if I keep those daytime temperatures warm, I have much less of a problem.
Yeah, and Rex, dowiana, and Varscewiczii are all in the same kind of area, and there are natural hybrids. And I think what happens is that they're all at this sort of Goldilocks zone in the mountains, and it's pretty much the same temperature all year. They're pretty close to the equator, so they get the same amount of sun. I think it's really the amount of rainfall that's sort of governing when they're blooming and growing. Um, and if it's outside that very narrow window, they just want to die.
Yeah, they're not going to put up with it.
Yeah.
Chadwick's book, I mean, Chadwick describes dowiana as like a really strong grower, with a bad rap. So I'm looking forward to growing these guys up. I've had, like I said, like we were talking about, seedlings are a little bit more forgiving, but I just want to show you a couple that I've got. These are Rositas. So maybe like we talked about Aurea earlier. Aurea is like a golden yellow variety. And I believe that you can find Aurea in Colombia and Costa Rica. Is that correct? Or is it only one of the two?
Aurea is, oh boy. My understanding is that Aurea is the southern variety.
Okay.
But if anyone out there has the computer on in front of them as they're watching this, feel free to comment and let us know. But I'm pretty sure Aurea is the southern variety. And then in Colombia, and then Costa Rica, which, those populations are separated by Panama, essentially,
Right.
should be the dowiana type rather than the Aurea type. And then I believe Rosita comes from the Costa Rica population.
Okay. So these are from Rogue Orchids. Brent Baker used to, I don't know if he still sells. His website doesn't seem like it's got much attention recently, but these are selfings of his Rosita clones. If you Google Dowiana Rosita Rogue Orchids, you can see a picture of him holding the plant. It's really spectacular. I'm super excited about these. Got a nice new leaf that just came up this summer. Got some roots pouring out of the pots here, and
That looks great.
Got a little R on my pot to remind me which one is which. This one was in a little not as good condition, but it is putting up a new leaf right there. And hopefully this one's gonna recover and start looking good. But anytime you start getting these nice, significantly larger leaves from the previous ones, it's like, all right, let's do it.
Yep.
At this point, I feel like you can start counting years to bloom.
I think so. That one looks like it's about the same size as this one.
And then you've got.
Then the next one looks like it got significantly bigger, and then you really start. And then, so I've grown and bloomed Rosita in Hawaii a couple times with a couple different plants, and I would say this next growth should be that big, and that'll be mature.
And then maybe the one after that will be ready to bloom.
Yeah, so if this eye right here decides, I don't know if you can see it, but if it decides to go over winter, which is what I'm hoping, then I could expect blooms this summer.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So this we're looking at 4 to 5 years possibly, depending on how fast we grow. And then the other seedlings I have are Rhea seedlings. These are from HBI. The clone is Excelente by Self. It's supposed to be a Colombian. Oh no, I think it says it's a Costa Rican one. But anyway, it's I got these as really tiny seedlings earlier this year, and I just have them stuck in these little pots. There's several plants per pot. And
what are you growing them in? Is it just
this one's in fine grade, just like big box store orchid bark.
Oh, okay.
And
that's perlite then.
Perlite, yeah.
Gotcha.
And then this one is in just there's a little sphagnum in the bottom there with this one. But yeah, it's really nice to see when one plant decides it's going to start putting out just something a little bit bigger. You can see one leaf getting longer, the other one's staying, and it's kind of getting into that sympodial growth habit. And when you look down there and you can start to see like the beginnings of its first bulb forming, it's always really exciting. They kind of grow like a phalaenopsis or like a vanda until they reach this like critical point, and then they start branching out from the bottom, and that's like it's a happy time when they start doing that. So yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll end up with as many dowianas as I have Rexes one day.
I was going to say, you have a lot of plants that are coming in. What are you going to do?
I don't know. I guess we're looking at a retirement plan here.
It's every orchid grower's conundrum.
Yeah, I mean, I still got a little room in my apartment, so I'll just have to, get rid of the couch, get rid of the chair, start putting some more tents in here because,
Smaller bed.
yeah, who needs a bed, right? Just sleep in the tent.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm looking
Um,
forward to those. And I've never seen a dowiana in bloom in person ever. So
oh,
I've
it's
never
nice.
been, entranced by the fragrance. Obviously, you and I both really love fragrances, and it's like I hear so much about particularly the dowiana fragrance, and I'm like, all right, well, I can. If it's going to be 5 or 6 years, that's okay.
It's worth definitely the fragrance alone. And the hand-sized flowers are kind of nice too. But man, I'll be stoked when you're able to cross your own dowiana by Rex. I mean that's cool. Yeah, I've never seen a Rex in person, so uh, I'm a little envious of what you've got going on over there.
I'll be honest, this summer, I had one plant that looked like it was going to miss the judging window for my judging center. And I was like, I maybe I just drive down to San Antonio and like surprise Steven with one of my blooming just show up, be like, hey man, like here it is.
That would be awesome.
So that's a possibility for sure because like I was so encouraged by the one getting the HCC this summer and that I have a better one, and I'm just like I know that one could probably get a better award, and I am willing to drive to get it. You know what I mean? They don't stay in bloom. They're only in their prime for a week and a half, So if that falls across a judging center that I can drive to and, in a reasonable amount of time, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to do that, what is it like, 10 to 12 hours to San Antonio? I would imagine
It'd be a 2-day trip. It'd be like
2 days.
16. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Dallas might be a little closer. They have a judging center as well.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
there's
know.
several. It's weird because they do judging at different times. So there's one in Kansas. There's several in Texas, like you mentioned. But Denver is kind of an island out in the middle of the country. I mean, it's many hours away from any other judging centers. So
And I speak to some of the folks in our center, the older folks from back when San Antonio covered that area from Denver all the way down to Louisiana.
gosh,
And if you were a judge at that time, you're expected to be there monthly. So if you're coming in from Oklahoma or Colorado or wherever, you had to drive down or fly down every month. And
yeah,
oh, glad we don't have to do that anymore.
yeah. I mean, I love my plants, but I don't know about buying a plane ticket for them. At least not yet.
Yeah.
It would be funny getting the plane with the plant in your lap, though.
Yeah, exactly. Every month. That's crazy. Um, I do want to mention, so you had mentioned your dry period for your Rexes. You have inspired me to do a dry period for my Varscewiczii.
Oh, good.
And one of the things that I like to talk about is do the same thing for all your plants. And if you have a plant that doesn't like that, screw it. Just dump it, sell it, whatever. Just to keep things simple. But this Varscewiczii is so nice.
Is that your
And
semi-alba?
this is the semi-alba. Yeah, this is a Bedford. It's SVO by Bedford, but it really took after the Bedford parent. It's got this huge red lip and then white petals and sepals. And actually, I traded another half. So this is only half the plant. I traded another equally large division with a friend for a really nice Percivaliana. But I'm gonna give this one special treatment this year, and I've got it in the grow tent where I can keep it warm and keep it away from any cold temperatures or watering. So it officially kicked its dry season off yesterday. So
Oh,
and what I'll do, actually, you've mentioned this to me before, and I've read the Chadwick article where he talks about spraying it very lightly in the spring to sort of initiate that growth, and then hold off on the watering until the growth is some size.
yeah, like 4 inches, I think you said.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people that reads that and is like,
Eh,
whatever, it doesn't need to happen, and then I just can't get good bloomings past that first one. So we'll see if that's what it takes. If
I'll be honest. You were mentioning how dowiana, Varscewiczii, and Rex are kind of all in that you call it the Goldilocks zone. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, I was like, a lot of pictures of Rex that I see online have many blooms, like 7 8 blooms on a spike, or at least 6, and the most I've been able to get is 4. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm always looking for what extra special treatment I can give my plants. So I'm like, what if I apply that Varscewiczii strategy to the Rexes? And because I've noticed, when I look at the weather data for where they're from, it's a 4 month dry period. But mine start growing after 2 months of the dry period. And then I usually just start, well, they're growing now, so I'm going to start watering. And I'm like, what if I do more like just let them grow through the last 2 months of the dry period by keeping that water minimal, and then really hit them with the water once they get a bit bigger. What'll happen, So that's going to be my change in culture for the Rexes this spring, is holding off on water through February and not really started to hit them with water until March.
I think that's a good idea.
All right, are we going to talk about those beautiful Cycnoches cooperies?
Yeah. Actually, before we get into seedlings, I brought the adult in that I have.
Oh, the big mama.
The big mama with the female flower. She had 3, and she still has one. And it's still fragrant.
So we're talking, how long has that been in bloom?
Maybe 6 weeks.
That is outstanding.
Yeah. So when, the downside of the female flowers for the cassetums is that they usually all look the same. They all have those green hoods, but they last a really long time, and they're intensely fragrant. I've got a bunch of females on one of my big cassetums in there, and when I walk in the greenhouse, it's just intensely fragrant. But I think the male flowers, which I'll show you here in a second, are nice, but this female flower, it's gotten kind of ruddy. It was this really nice bronze. But hey, 6 weeks on a flower, and the other 2 fell off. They shriveled up for whatever reason. But I mean, there are benefits to having the female flowers, especially with the Cycnoches.
And I'm noticing that plant doesn't look like it's dropped any leaves.
No, it's thinking about it. You can see how yellow these axils are, and the leaves, and yeah. Looks like I might lose this back bulb. It's starting to turn yellow.
Is it true that Cycnoches tend to not hold on to many bulbs? You're not going to get like a 10 bulb specimen like you can get with the little Cloacias, or?
No, for the most part. I mean, sometimes you'll see some. In fact, we awarded some female flowers on a Cycnoches 2 weeks ago at our judging center, and just hand-sized flowers. Had a lot of Varscewiczii in the background, Cycnoches Varscewiczii in the background. And I think Susan's plant had 3 or 4 bulbs, and they were twice as large as these.
Wow.
So they were, and just magnificent. In fact, I'll post some pictures here so you can see what it looks like. I think she had 3 or 4 bulbs, which is just a spectacularly grown plant, really amazing. But it's not common.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to do. They are one of those groups that live fast, die young. They typically grow on rotting logs or rotting trees in the wild. So they're those don't last very long in the jungle as they break down. So that was the female there, and then this little seedling.
Can I ask you about the female? Can I ask you, is it the same cross as your seedling?
Oh,
but just from a previous year?
I don't know. I got this from someone else. I didn't get it directly from Fred, so I don't know what that.
I was browsing through his back catalogs, and he offered that same cross, but it was like 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh, I wonder if that's when Steven's got.
And cooperi is one of those ones that was like when I first started growing the Cattleyas group, 15 plus years ago, that was super common. Everybody had Bartiorum, cooperi, Jean E. Monnier, and a handful of others. But and then cooperi kind of went away, and I'm glad that Fred is bringing them back. So this is it's just opening up. So when these flowers are pretty flat, I'll probably make a video about it. But the males that we're seeing here are head and shoulders above the one that I just showed you. The male flowers for the one that I just showed you, the segments are really thin, so there's sort of lots of space between the petals and the sepals. Whereas this one, you can see that it's not quite open yet, but big full segments. When these open, there shouldn't really be a whole lot of space between the petals and sepals.
I'm seeing, I don't know how many. I'd love to know how many Fred actually had this summer that he sold on his June list. I got one. A lot of people bought multiple. I was surprised. I've seen some people posting, well, I got 3, I got 5. It's like, what? But they're blooming for a lot of people right now. If you're on the different orchid message boards and social media, across the board, they're excellent flowers. I mean, they're just really nice.
Yeah, exactly. They're super nice. And these are the dark ones. Oh, and just in case anybody's wondering, this is the cross. That is SVO, which was awarded an FCC by Memoria Pat Worthington, which was awarded an AM once upon a time. And then, of course, they're from Fred Clark over there at Sunset Valley. But cooperi is a lot more variable. So the ones that they're kind of shooting for are dark. So this is actually kind of a light color, probably compared to what Fred was going for. But they range from a very deep mahogany, which is what color those males are on that larger plant that I just showed, all the way to green.
That'd be cool to have a green one.
Yes, and I haven't seen a green one in the United States in forever. Even back when cooperi was a lot more common in the area in the United States, the green ones still seem kind of rare. So I'm really hoping that someone finds one of those and is able to use that in their breeding, because getting that would be really cool.
Yeah, green flowers are really just interesting, and I think a lot of people they're attracted to green flowers for some reason. They're just not typical, I guess.
Yeah, and it is kind of a subset, I think, of orchid growers that really are into the green versus non-colored or versus colored. But let's see yours, because you bought yours within like
this is
a month of mine.
Guy from the same cross. Got him back in June. He's dropped 3 leaves so far, and it's really going pretty slow. I'm still watering, but less. It's packed in the same sphagnum that Fred, had him packed in when he shipped them, and I'm just gonna leave it like this until spring. I'll probably repot it into something a little bit bigger in the spring, something that won't fall over as easily. I'm happy with the way the bulb looks. It's nice and firm. Leaves seem okay, but my question is just, do I just kind of treat this the way I treat my others and just keep the medium fairly moist until we really have dropped all the leaves and then go completely dry? Or is that even too much? I'm a little bit paranoid about this because this is my first Cattleyas species, as it were. So I'm just expecting it to be a little bit more finicky than the other ones that I have. All the rest I have are hybrids.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm letting them dry between waterings. So whereas mine are basically, they're wet from the day I hit them with the hose in the spring until the day I start drying them out in November. So the ones in my greenhouse go for probably a week, and then I'll hit them with a little bit of water, and then probably in mid-December, just nothing, unless they're shriveling. And when it comes to Cycnoches, they're one of the ones that want to die, just like what we talked about with the Cattleyas. A little bit of water in the wrong time of the growing season. In fact, I got a Heron Hussein. I think it's an import. I got it at Miami, and I left it outside, and I had forgotten about it. It is totally dormant. And within a week or two of getting it, it rained, just a natural rain. It was kind of chilly.
Oh, but it was dormant.
And it rotted right off the bat. So the rot for these guys will typically start where the roots are in, rather than at the top. So, and then it'll spread. So I cut that off. I still have 95% of the bulb, so I think it's fine. but it just shows that if they get even a little bit of water during their dormancy, and your plant isn't dormant yet.
Okay.
Neither of our plants are dormant yet. When they drop those leaves, just bone dry. If it starts to shrivel too much and you feel that you need to give it water, make sure that it's in really warm conditions, like 65 plus until it dries out again.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing about the tent is that that's as chilly as it's going to get in there anyway. It's about 60, 63, 64. So, all right, good to know. I'm going to try not to I'm like this. Well, actually something cool about this species, I read that it is actually from the Peruvian Andes, which my Cattleyas are also from Peruvian Andes. So they're like neighbors. They just live different elevations on the mountain.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it's nice that I can make a dry season. I can basically, everybody needs a dry season. So that works really well.
Yeah. They can all grow next to each other and makes things convenient.
Yeah. It'd be so cool to do it, to take a trip down there and actually see those plants in the wild. I think that's a bucket list for sure.
Yeah. Actually, a buddy of mine and I are probably going to go with Francisco Miranda in 2024.
Oh, really?
To Brazil to see Nobilior blooming in the wild. So that should be fun. Maybe if you want to go, you can go.
I'll hold you to it.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Maybe we'll do a side trip to Peru.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta show this little guy off. Rebecca Northern. It's got 2 nice little spikes on it.
That's cool.
Got about 7 on each one. And I just have heard so many great things about this plant. I'm super excited. Hopefully she keeps going and she blooms out for me.
And it's interesting that yours is going so early. I mean, normally I see Rebecca Northern in February or it's crosses, so that's great that you get to see it now. Maybe it'll go again.
Oh, you think? Well, who knows? Well, we've talked about this before. My plants like to bloom when I'm away. So Rebecca's not going to bloom until I leave for my holiday break to go see family for a week. So that's what happened last year too. They were all just like, I'll see the nubbins come out and I'll start thinking about timing and be like, oh yeah, you're going to bloom while I'm gone. All right. Okay. But hopefully they'll last long enough that I'll be able to come back and see them, or maybe she'll keep going really fast and I'll get to see them before I leave. But I'm really stoked.
I mean, a mature plant will keep the flowers for 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Even a first bloom like that will probably hold it for 2 or 3 weeks. So you should be able to see the flowers.
I'm excited. Everyone talks about the fragrance, how nice the fragrance is. So I'm happy because the other plant that I have with Grace done as a parent, it's very slightly fragrant. It's not very fragrant at all. So I'm hoping that this one will be really make up for it.
Yep.
Cool.
I'm looking around. I think that's all I got.
All right. Well, as usual, good chatting with you.
Yeah. Good to chat with you, and happy Thanksgiving a day late.
I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I definitely did.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, we'll do it again maybe a little after Christmas.
That'll be a good time. Absolutely. Yeah, and then hopefully I'll have some Cattleyas in bloom I can show you.
Yes, I guess when you get back from seeing family, and we'll film another one.
They'll welcome me back with their blooms.
Yes, exactly.
The better.
Hopefully still on the plant.
Right, not on the floor.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's been a pleasure, Stephen. Thank you.
Good chat.
All right, see ya.